Well, hello everyone. I am really pleased to have with us today a very special person, and which maybe you can already tell what she does from her background. Paola Di Legge. Paola Di Legge is a moss artist. Now, we know that in biophilic design, or even just in creating sustainable homes, getting as close to nature as possible is one of the solutions. So clearly bringing nature inside through the forms of plants or moss is something which we are definitely going to be looking at. But I would like to pass the word over to Paola, who will tell us, first of all, a bit about herself and how she got to become a moss artist. And will also take us through some of the ins and outs of what this means and the benefits it has for us in our homes, offices, workplaces, you name it. So, word over to you, Paola, and thank you so much for accepting this invitation and being with us here today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Odile. It's a great opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to talk about my work. It's a bit unusual, so I know a lot of people are a bit curious of, what it is about. And so I prepared a, short presentation about my work and what I do. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Yes.
And
you should be already, yes.
Okay, let me see. Do you see my screen?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Okay, here we are. So this is a little bit about myself. So I'm Italian national. I've been living in Dublin, in Ireland, for 20 years at this point with my family. My background is in project management and cybercrime investigation, totally another world from what I'm doing now. Then I took a career break, and during this career break, I really wanted to find my true calling. So I did a course on entrepreneurship and innovation. And after that, I started a hobby, which was floral design. And during, this course that I was doing a lot of research on, floral installation and things like that. And that's where I found preserved flowers. So these flowers that are real, they are natural, but they were preserved. And so they didn't need any maintenance. And this fascinated me so much that I decided to, have it a go and make an order for it. Also, because I just moved to a new house, I had lots of, empty places to fill. So with the flowers, I also ordered the preserved moss. And when this order came, I was totally, wowed, fascinated by, touching these materials that were real, but they were, like crystallized almost. And so I started really digging into it, and also especially on the moss art side as well, because there weren't really many, courses out there to learn how to do it. So I was, looking what other people were doing, but I didn't know how to do it myself. So I basically started experimenting and finding my own way into crafting, these moss frames for my house. I had lots of empty walls in my house. So I started really doing it for myself. And I was really, everybody, my family, my friends that came in, they were so, fascinated. They started like, oh, you should really share this and trying to sell it. And I was like, yeah, but I want to see first whether, they actually last, because I don't want to sell something that it doesn't last in the end, right? So I waited a little bit. And while I waited, I started to, study biophilic design. I, discovered biophilic design and all the, experimental, but also the data behind all the experiments that were done to, really show how people well-being and mental and physical health, increased while they were living close to nature, even when indoors. And we all know we now spend almost 90% of our time indoors. So it's really, really important to be connected to nature. And in that sense, I really experienced this effect on myself because when I was working in the office, especially at the end of my career, my office was being, renovated. So we were moved to another building, and my desk was so far from the window. I was not exposed to natural sunlight at all, because especially in winter, I got in, it was dark. I got out, it was dark. I was far from the windows, and I felt this, I don't know. I don't know. It was a discomfort. I didn't know where it came from. And so in my new life, let's say, right, once I was, in my home, I had, the opportunity to be in nature, but also to live closer to nature at home with my plants, with my moss art. I really felt the difference, and I really felt connected to, the biophilic design principles, because I was living it myself. And so I decided to make this my career, to share this with others, because I totally believed in, the benefits that come through it. And so I also attended a course in biophilic design with the Living Future Institute, and I started Ninfa Studio with a website I did myself just to try it out. And then I saw that really people liked it and trusted, and even if I was selling online, they were actually liking it so much that they were buying it, and that's how it started, basically. So yeah, so I also wanted to, because everybody at this point I've seen a moss wall. So it's very popular. It's in airports, shopping centers, it's everywhere at this point. These huge installations, though, at this point are made by garden center, and they are beautiful, but they are different from moss art. Moss art, it's more, involves more the creativity, the imagination of the artist, so the materials used might be the same because it's preserved, moss and plants, but the final result is different. I tend to always use frames, because frames make the final piece really more like a piece of art, really, that reflects also the the artistic side of it. So that there is really a difference now if you see a moss wall that is beautiful, but maybe it's plain or it has plants here and there, from a moss art piece. And so there is a difference. I will show you as well some of my work so that you can see yourself. So biophilic art, then, it's really an innovative and sustainable art form that combines the beauty of nature with the artistic expression. And it looks vibrant, looks striking on the wall, but also has this this effect, this sensory connection to people. So it's not just a piece of art. It elicits some, sensations, some emotions, and the fact that it can be, he has textures, it can be touched, he has different types of textures, it makes us feel more connected to nature, become present in the moment while you touch it, and really, make us naturally feel, more present, and, elicit those feelings of wonders that we feel when we are outside in nature itself. So that's, sorry, I cannot hear you, Odile. Do you have the microphone
Yes,
on?
so, okay.
Okay.
Yes, I turned it off while you were talking. So, and it also gives a certain amount of fragrance, smell, doesn't it?
Yes, yes. So there is a subtle, smell into it. So if you cannot really smell it from this distance, but if you go, very close and you touch it and you smell it, you can actually smell it. So it involves multiple senses, really. Yes. So this is a little bit about the inspiration. So obviously, I make different types of designs, and my main inspiration is nature itself. So sometimes I just go, to the library with my kids, and while they are reading, I take a book of, natural wonders. I open it and I see all these, topography pictures, or, the galaxies, and those are my main inspiration then for my pieces. Sometimes I take pictures of the book so that I can check them out at home while I'm, I want, if I want to feel inspired a little bit. So yeah, nature is the main inspiration for me. A little bit about the materials, right? So all the materials are 100% natural. They have been sustainably harvested and preserved by professional suppliers. So I've been testing and trying different type of suppliers because I wanted to make sure that the harvesting process and the preservation process was done, really sustainably. And I asked them many questions on, how the moss was harvested and all that. And so at this point now, I only use, the suppliers that are based in Europe, so that, we avoid long haul, transportations, and that use sustainably, processes for, the preservation itself, but also the harvesting and the cultivation of moss. The preservation process itself is done in factories, so it's controlled. It's, only natural preservatives are used. And because some of the plants can actually even be colored, the dyes that they use are non-toxic. So many times they are food coloring, so they are even safer to eat if we don't eat the plants, of course. And these dyes really, make the plants retain their vibrancy and their flexibilities as well, with the preservative, which is more like glycerin type. So the beauty of it as well is that some of the plants, like reindeer moss, which is a lichen really, retains some features even if it's preserved. So once the plants are preserved, they are not living any longer. But the preserved reindeer moss retain some features and some properties. So like sound absorption, air cleaning, it's fire retardant, and humidity absorption. It's actually a very good indicator of the humidity in the house. I know these are things that, people are really curious about. So I also wrote some articles in my blog on, for example, how to use moss art as an indicator of the humidity levels indoors, the properties. So there is a lot to say about it, but, it's really amazing, the the properties that these textures, these materials keep, even if they are not alive anymore.
So this is very interesting. And this, what you are saying is exclusively for reindeer moss or also for the other types of plants which you use?
Reindeer moss, it would be the most,
Multifaceted
for that. Yeah. Even though the other moss, so every preserved moss, it's really sensitive to humidity, for example. And so if the house has a very high humidity, the moss becomes bristle a little bit, you can see it's not vibrant any longer. So and that's because maybe you are in a cottage with lots of drops and lots of humidity inside. So but especially reindeer moss, you can see especially in the reindeer moss, and also the other features, they are more applicable to the reindeer moss. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask another question regarding the colors. I think I asked you this question before once. So we can color, in fact, what I understand is we can have all kinds of colors of moss as long as, because they can be dyed. Is that so?
Yes. So the reindeer moss is the type of moss that tend to, be colored more than others. So the other types of moss are, basically colored in their natural color because they are used for more natural type of moss art, right? While the reindeer moss can also be used, for pops of colors, for example. So it can be dyed like orange, fuchsia, blue, brown, black. Wow. Yellow. And in fact, one of my, because there is request for these pops of colors as well, something more modern and that pops out of the wall. So I do make, the moss circles with reindeer moss in different colors and in different sizes to create like compositions in colors that are not the shades of green. Yeah.
That's very interesting. After all, as they say, everybody thinks that green, biophilic design is green because nature is green. But in fact, in nature, there are all colors.
Yeah, exactly.
All colors exist in nature. So just a little divergence this is something I sustain a lot. I mean, I love green color, but it's not that biophilic design is just green. We need to have a palette which we feel relaxed and which we feel connected to. But if something is blue or is yellow, it doesn't mean it cannot also be part of a biophilic process.
Exactly. And I also, and this is the beauty of the versatility of, preserved moss. Because it's available in different colors, can be, made in different styles. I always ask my customers, for example, if you have a specific palette in your house, we can match that, with a beautiful, moss art piece that is matching your palette, and you still have, nature indoors. It doesn't have to be, necessarily green. It can be blue, it can be, yellow or whatever, matches your style. So that's another, that's the beauty of it as well.
Absolutely. No, this I think is important because otherwise people think, oh, I don't, just green. No, it can be something else as well. Of course, green gives you more the sensation of being inside the forest.
Yes.
I'm sure you as an artist can match the two things together.
Yes. Okay, so here we are. The lifespan is the #1 question I get asked, so I wanted to include it. So it's really dependent on the type of moss, the color of the moss, the quality of the moss as well. So let's say one of the, moss frames, like, if we want to generalize, the one in the picture, last at least 5 years, like this one. But in general, it really depends on, what type of plants are used, because some of them may dry a little bit. It also highly depends on how they are kept, because they need to be kept indoors. No, they are not suitable even for, a porch or something, even if it's covered. It cannot be exposed to humidity at all. It has to be indoors, and ideally out of direct sunlight, or direct light, lots of light, because the light, with the time, it discolors the moss. So really they thrive in darker place, really, even if something like a normal, if the direct sunlight doesn't hit directly the frame, it's totally fine. But if you have it in a place like a windowless bathroom, a corridor that has some dark spots, that's the ideal place where your moss art will thrive, because it will not discolor, it will stay like that, and you can just let it be. It doesn't need any water, spray, trimming, nothing. It doesn't actually even attract dust. So maybe I never really dusted any of my moss art. I don't know how, but it doesn't attract dust or insect, nothing. It just stays there, and beautiful. But then also the reindeer moss in particular lasts very, very long time when kept in optimal condition, right? Even last over 10 years. So that's why some of my work that is entirely made with reindeer moss, they are really, really popular, because they are even longer lasting than, standard, let's say, preserved moss. So that's a real, the longevity, it's real feature of the moss art, because you really have a piece of greenery at home that looks beautiful, makes you feel connected to nature, doesn't need any maintenance. It can be kept in dark spaces where living plants wouldn't survive, but you still be able to decorate it with nature, and that's beautiful.
That's lovely. I like the idea that you put it in a darker space, because it would seem it's usually the space which is most difficult to put nature in, apart from maybe, drawing some fractals, but living nature like house plants in a dark space sometimes are difficult. But
exactly.
So this is
it can
interesting.
Exactly, complements very well, living plants and preserved plants in the darker spots,
But how about, for example, in a bathroom? Because if I want to put it in a bathroom, will I have the humidity of maybe when I have a shower? Will that do something to it?
Exactly. So it depends, how you use the bathroom. So if it's a bathroom where everybody takes showers every day, probably not the best. But if it's a bathroom where, you just, you wash your hands, you don't really, take a shower that much, it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a guest bathroom, downstairs.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
nice. Okay.
Guest bathroom is the best example. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about the sensory experience, right? So there is this visual impact of moss art that is supported by the sensory experience provided by the three-dimensional aspect of it. So there is the visual pleasure, there is the touching, sense involved, but also the smell, and meaning that these pieces of art can be explored with all the senses and create a sensory experience that really foster a stronger connection to nature. And now I'm gonna, tell you a little bit about some tips stimulate the senses with, moss art. I also handcraft, interior decor, like, miniature moss gardens or centerpieces made with, handmade olive wood bowl and the moss. So they are really, they are really stimulating in terms of, senses, the touching and the feeling of objects as well. It's not just, the wall art. So I'm also writing, a lot of blog posts about, creating the, how the moss art and this, interior decor can be used for a sensory experience. So here are just some tips to create this type of experience, and creating daily routines as well. So setting up like a biophilic nook in your house can be a corner, with a chair, some plants, some moss art, some little, natural inspired objects as well. Creating calming routines can be like, putting on your favorite music, like a calming music, maybe, the, sounds of the forest, or something really calming, really. Maybe, light on, a beeswax candle, touching something, soft and natural, like, the moss bowl can be. Engage with, with nature, with biophilic art and decor, smell it, touch it, involve all the senses. And maybe you can, sip a herbal tea as well to involve taste sense as well. So, that's just a few tips that can help really feel connected to nature at home through the senses. Okay. And these
Yes, that's
are
lovely.
some.
That's lovely what you just said, being able to create your little nook of,
Yeah.
sensory stimulation.
Yes, yes. And these are some examples of, work that, I've done with the sensory experience in mind. So this is a sensory wall that is designed to stimulate the senses through the composition of different natural textures and materials. So here you have like bark, mushrooms, different textures of, moss, like pole moss, reindeer moss, the flat moss, and you can touch them and touch the different textures and really, have a moment of, calm and connection and, really mindfulness in contact with nature. This has been really popular. I've done, this sensory wall for offices, but also for nursing homes. And it's used as a wall decor, so to decorate the space with nature, but also it's used by the employees themselves and also the patients of, the nursing home, for example, patients with dementia or mobility issues. And the feedback has been amazing, especially because the nursing homes, commissioned this during COVID. So a lot of people obviously were indoors, and, some people with mobility issues couldn't really go outdoors that much in, with all the COVID, related stress. And the fact that, having really, the ability to have nature indoors while people were together, maybe in a room with those, frames, the ability to touch them, it's also a conversation starter, between people, even in the offices, right? Oh, look at that. And, it's really, a way to stay together and, talk about nature, maybe being more, aware of environmental, issues as well. So I was saying the feedback from both the offices and the nursing home where this sensory wall was installed was really, really amazing, positive, for the effect it had on people. So I can't hear you, Odile.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
You can hear me now. I'm
Yes.
sorry about that. The sensory wall, especially for nursing homes and people and old care homes for people who are have a slight dementia, is very important. And I was looking at this example which you showed us on this slide. So what do we have here exactly? We have a bark. Can you tell me?
Actually, so the brown one is mushrooms. Look, I have one here.
Ah, just fancy that. Mushrooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's mushrooms. The bark is not here, but I make it as well.
Okay.
Then the white and the green at the bottom, at the corner, at the two corners, is reindeer moss.
Okay. Okay.
And the top left is flat moss. So like the moss that we see like in the forest. And the center one, the bright green, is the pole moss, which is, I'll show you. I have it here as well. See,
so it really gives a sensation, not just because this is important, because I went to see a care home the other day and they did have some of these sensory stimuli, but of course they were made of different kind of materials. They weren't natural.
Yeah.
So at the same time, this not only gives you the touch elements which they are interested in, but also the sensation of nature.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Yes. And it's really, really nice to touch and, maybe together with other people. It's a way to stay together as well and talk about nature and, spark these conversations. Yes.
Okay.
And here is another example. So this is a frame that I made with the sensory experience in mind. So it's called antipodes because, it's all about contrasting textures and colors. So at the top, it's made with reindeer moss and amaranthus, preserved amaranthus, which when it's glued, it's a bit hard. So there is this hard, core in the center, which is bark. It's cork bark, which is very rough, right, and hard. And then all in the, surrounding it, there is the different textures of reindeer moss and the amaranth. So at the top, the black one is the amaranth that is quite hard if you touch it. And then as you go down, you gradually, there is a progression from, the hard and dark textures to the light and very soft one at the bottom of reindeer moss. The white reindeer moss is very, very soft. And, that represents like our journey through life with, different experiences and, difficulties, but also joys, right? So that's an example of sensory-based design that was made with the, with the touch in particular in mind.
Beautiful.
Yes. And those are my contacts. If people want to contact me or has any question or want to follow me, on my journey, these are, where they can find me. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Paola, for this. I do want to ask you a couple more questions, if I may.
Yes.
So
Yes.
firstly, as a moss artist, you are mainly an artist, but you work on commission, or do you even have expositions? And if so, where?
Yes. So on my website, I offer for sale different styles of moss art so that people can see what suits them best. But I have a limited amount of sizes and styles, right? But I actually mainly work on commissions. So people contact me, sometimes they know exactly what they want. They know exactly the size, the colors of the frame, the style they want, and I create that for them. Sometimes they're not sure, so we have calls. They ask me for advice where they can put, the moss frame, if, the location is suitable or there is too much light, or how they can decorate based on their color palette. And I give advice on, what I think would, look great in their, in their space. So I mainly then, work with them to design, the best piece for their house and then make it. So, and I, ship it everywhere because, it's plants are not alive, so they can be shipped anywhere, and they don't require any water or, anything or light, so they can actually travel. Yes, so I mainly work now on commission. Basically, this year I worked, almost all commissions. At the moment, I used to have a studio in Dublin, in a beautiful park. It was like the perfect location in, a very nice, art collective, in a beautiful park. But it
Probably.
was very, very small, and I couldn't really work in it. So I couldn't actually stay there. It was just for appointments, and yes, and it was very, very small. So at the moment, I'm only online. And I'm looking for a bigger studio to have a showroom, at least people can actually see. Because when I had this experience with the studio, for me, it was amazing because I could actually see the reaction of people that came in and, look at the art, the questions, the wow face they had, what they liked the most. So it was really, really interesting for me as well to get feedback from people. So I definitely want to do that again. So at the moment, because I don't have a showroom, I'm trying to book, exhibition during, events and things like that. But at the moment, I only have a virtual exhibition that I launched last week, actually, where, it's a different feeling, obviously, than, having it close. But it's nice because you can see the different styles, the different sizes, what will look best in your house. And also there is a feature where you can actually see any, piece on your wall. You have to download an app, but you can actually see how it looks like, which is great. So at the moment, that's where I am, but, hopefully
But
I'll
that
find.
sounds very interesting. We will definitely go and have a look at this virtual studio which you have put on, and I'm sure people will come and contact you. So the process, there are two more questions, sorry. I really am curious. So the process is, I don't know what I want, but I would like very much to put some moss art in my home. So I contact you, you have a discussion of your style, your colors, how your room is set out, maybe with even some photos. You make your suggestions. And before actually preparing the piece, do they have a kind of a sketch to see what it's going to look like, or how does it work?
Great question. So it really depends on the person, right? And depends on the type of art that they choose. So when they choose something like this, they cannot really expect a piece to come out the same way. Nothing will come out in the same way. Every piece is one of a kind. And I always mention that, make sure I mention that in my website, because to set the expectations. When there are different types of pieces, people tell me, oh, I like, hope style. Which is the one with the center that is lighter and then it comes darker, like it expands, right? So I always mention, look, it's not going to be the exact same as this, also because it depends on the shape that they want. Some people want it squared, some people want it, rectangular, very long. So, the piece will come out differently. So I always, try to get, what they, if they have preferences based on the piece that they ask me. So I start asking the question, but I also try to understand how the person, the personality, right, behind. So you would be, amazed, but so many people give me, blank canvas. They say, okay, I like this, Paola, but you do your work. Don't worry, I totally trust you. I trust your creative flow, and don't worry, I'm sure I'm gonna like it. And that's the best for me because it takes off the pressure, right?
Of course, of course.
Of the, and in those occasions, the best pieces come out. So yeah, I had really fortunately, my customers are so lovely and they always trust me and they give me, space to create something nice for them, and they're really happy in the end. So I always had positive experiences so far.
Well, absolutely. The more you let your creativity is freer, you're having constraints, the best that comes out. So the other question I wanted to ask you is flowers. So we are speaking about moss, okay?
Yeah.
But I have an personal interest in flowers. So I am wondering, can we have preserved, not fake flowers, preserved flowers, and can they be inserted into these creations?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So preserved flowers are beautiful, are the things that really make me fall in love with the preserved world, right? So usually the bigger preserved flowers have, are sold with the head. So then they require more work from the florist, let's say, to create a composition, because they need to be attached a stem. And you can find also, natural stems that can be attached to the head of the flower, but they require work. So they don't come out like that. So they can be arranged in beautiful, bouquet composition with preserved eucalyptus that really keep the smell. I love the smell of eucalyptus, really. So the composition of flowers and eucalyptus together really gives, it's so beautiful to keep, but also because you don't really need to do anything. It's really, really a treasure to have. And at the beginning, I was actually also selling lots of bouquets and flower arrangement. Then the orders for the moss art came in, and I actually couldn't do both. So I focused on one, which was the moss art. But the flowers, I kept the flowers, my passion with the flowers. And I also, especially at the beginning, created some composition with moss and flowers together. Yes, actually, I have one that is called the flower plot, and it's moss on the background, and then there are different type of very small flowers in different colors that make a wave, and the colors change throughout, which was really, really beautiful and popular as well. So there are, bigger flowers for composition and arrangement, but also very small flowers in different colors that can be used. And I also make, so the only thing that I'm keeping with the flowers now that I do are the preserved flower letters. I'm not sure if you have seen any. So it's a framed initial, like a P or, whatever letter, made with preserved flowers. So with small roses and, small preserved flowers that can be, hung on the wall. And they are very, very popular as a gift for ladies, but also for newborns, because you never know what to gift a newborn. And that's a very nice way, to decorate the nursery, and, to have something that they can keep for years. And so that's really, really popular. And that's the only thing that I kept, because it's really beautiful. Everybody likes it. And it's one of my gift ideas that is best for selling, actually.
Perfect. So, but where did you learn to do the moss art? Everyone asks this question, because there isn't a school in itself.
Yes.
It's very much a self-taught thing, I think.
Exactly. There isn't any course out there, like proper course. I actually attended some of them that actually teach you how to even preserve the moss. So I was curious and I wanted to learn more, and I attended this course, but I never really did it myself. I also wanted to see what other moss artists use as techniques, and I actually use very different ones. So I came to realize that moss art is really like a painting, right? A different type of art. Everyone finds their own technique that works for them based on the style that they use. And so I can see from other moss artists that they use different techniques, because I know that, if you're going to glue the reindeer moss with PVA glue, is not gonna stay in a certain way, right? So you have the technical eye to understand that they are using a different technique than yours. But that's okay, because everyone has their own techniques, like a painter would.
Exactly.
Yes.
It is an art. You are an artist. So at the end of the day, you find your own way of doing it. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much for today, Paola. I think it was really interesting, and everybody, I hope, is inspired, as inspired as I am. And I would like to remind everyone that you can get hold of Paola's contacts will be on her speakers page. And if I am not mistaken, Paola, did you want to offer something to the audience, or we just had the website?
Yes, I'll send you the offer, so you can put it in my page, so they can follow the instruction to get.
Perfect. Excellent.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I advise you all to read my notes and have a look at Paola's page. Thank you so much, Paola, for today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
The pleasure was mine. Bye-bye.